Hey, what's going on, my friends, my family, my fellow gamers? This is your boy Porter Rock 77, and we are live. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a dope vid to step two. Step two. What's going on, people? Um, yeah, quarantine for everybody, right? Let me fix this a little bit here. As you can see from the background, new surroundings. I'm no longer. Oh, hold up. Okay, yeah. You probably think, there we go. I had to unmute myself. I'm thinking, wait a minute. Had my mic muted. So let me say it again. Welcome, my friends, my family, my fellow gamers. Your boy Porter Rock 77 with a live vid. I know it's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a dope vid to step to. Let me look at some settings. What's good, people? First off, before anything else, for those watching my vid, for those who are not, your friends, family, I hope you guys are staying safe out there. For those of you who are still working, because your profession is considered essential, uh, I just want to personally say thank you very much for doing the jobs that you do. Right? Uh, it's weird that it took a crisis like this to truly appreciate, you know, the people that work in the back of a grocery store, or the minimum wage McDonald's workers, or the nurses, the doctors, first responders, the people who deliver food, people who work in supermarkets, uh, prescription stores, everything that's considered essential and has to stay open. Um, GameStop, nah, just not GameStop. Um, but there's a lot of yous that still have to wake up in the morning. Some of yous work in the medical industries and warehousing, Amazon, and regardless of the crisis, you guys are out there doing what you got to do, um, keeping society with the minimum, with the stuff that we need. So I just want to say, most of the time I'm always on the receiving end of thank you. Being a Marine, I'm always on the receiving end of people always think of me for my service and what I do for the country and for people like me. But this time I get to pay it forward, and I want to say thank you all for sustaining that. Because the truth is, what I do is so that way you guys can keep doing what you're doing, and you guys doing a phenomenal job, and I truly appreciate all you guys, and I hope after we get through this, and we will get through this one way or another, we all see that some jobs aren't just summer high school jobs for the kids, that they're just not low skill minimum wage jobs. The people that deliver food. Yeah, there's people who still work in McDonald's. That's considered essential, So they're out there working, ordering food and stuff like that. People doing deliveries and all this stuff. Gas stations are still open. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of jobs out there that that I don't think anybody realize how critical they are, simply because we see them every day, and it's nothing to us, So, but I want to take the opportunity and say thank you guys for all of you, and for the rest of us, not taking away from your jobs or whatever. I say to you, stay safe, do the smart thing. The hardest part is complacency. Um, I'm very well versed in that. Doing 2 combat deployments, the reality is, it's not like you get into a life-threatening situation every single day. There are days where nothing happened and boredom sets in, and then your mind just starts wandering, and the things that you're trained to do, you start getting complacent, don't do it no more, and then you get caught off guard. So for everyone else, regardless of how boring it is, stay the course. Make sure you do what you're supposed to do. Don't go out if you don't have to. Minimize contact. Keep social distancing, 6 feet. Even if it's your best friend you haven't seen in a while, keep that 6 feet of distance. Consistently wash your hands at least for 20 seconds. Disinfect your house. Disinfect, Lysol spray. Clean areas that tend to get touched by hands all the time. you know. And if you don't need to go out, don't go out. Stay home, watch Netflix, play video games. Hey, how many times have we all complained we never have enough time to play video games? And now that we do, nobody wants to stay home and play. Just, stay home, all right? If you don't have to. If you have to go to the store, do what you got to do. But while you're out there, minimize contact, do the air nod, social distancing, bring your wife, just take care of yourself, all right? And you get through this because the main thing is a lot of us, some of us are strong. So even if we do get sick, we'll be able to handle it. But the concern is the people we pass it on to, I would hate to think that due to my irresponsibility, I end up causing the sickness to spread, and some people don't survive because of it. I don't think I'll be able to handle that. So that's how I look at it. I look at it as, would I be able to survive the sickness? Of course, at least I would like to hope. But I'm more concerned about the people in my surroundings. I don't want them to get, to catch it because of me, and they don't survive, due to my irresponsibility. So keep safe, and that's it. So I truly appreciate it. Once again, I truly appreciate everybody showing up right now. Thank you so much. We got 47 viewers so far. If you don't mind, hit the like button. And also, please retweet this out, because we're going to have a nice discussion about the PlayStation 5. I'm going to cover down. Oh, but if you notice, my surroundings different. I'm in a barracks room and the base that I work at. I finally moved out of my apartment. And I know some of you maybe asked, just to give you a backstory. The week that the Department of Defense, the Secretary of Defense said, hey, there'll be no official military movements, official orders of military members going or leaving from level 3 CDC level 3 diagnosed countries. And I was one of those. I was living in one of those countries. It was Germany. Germany was diagnosed as level 3 for COVID, right? So I had orders to execute to go to California. Those orders hasn't been canceled. They just been delayed till June. The funny part is, though, that week that it was on Thursday that order came out. That Monday and Tuesday, all my furniture left. I packed up my bed, bureau, dresser, pots, pans, everything. Everything left the house. TVs, everything left the house, right? The only thing I kept was 2 luggages worth of clothes and my PlayStation. Got to keep the PlayStation, right? Because I figured I was going to go into the hotel, stay there for a couple of days, and then fly out. That was the plan. My wife, so Monday and Tuesday, my furniture left. Wednesday, my wife left in front of me. And then I was going to stay behind for like a week and a half, do my out processing, my final checkout, medical and all that stuff, stay in the hotel, play some PlayStation, and then fly to California. But then the whole thing, lockdown, came back, right? So I'm sorry, I was just reading the chat. So now I was stuck here till June. I won't be able to leave till June. But I'm in an apartment with no furniture, no nothing. So I had to buy an air mattress. I bought another TV, But the main thing was, as long as I lived in that apartment, I wouldn't be able to collect what's called basic allowance of housing, which comes out to $3,255 a month extra, because my wife is gone. So now I would be considered a geographical bachelor, a single bachelor, because geographically my wife is not with me. So I finally was able to get a room, and now starting in April, I'll be collecting some money, which will help me prepare to get an apartment when we move to California. So things are working out. So now I got an actual bed, not a mattress. I got my TV set up. I got a desk. Got my internet back up and running. Got a TV. Fridge is the barracks life is not so bad. Got a refrigerator, microwave, a stove. So now I'm able to cook, and I live a bit more comfortably for the next 2 months. And hopefully things get better, because if it doesn't, that means they'll extend. And then I have to delay my orders even more. But hopefully things get better for everyone. And we could get back to normal when it's time. Let's not force anything or any weird stuff, or have to sacrifice grandparents for the sake of the economy. We don't have to do no weird stuff like that, But anyway, thank you so much for rocking out. Appreciate you joining the stream. I know you guys, well, I guess all of us have extra time, right? A lot of us have extra time playing games, watching podcasts, Netflix, I think we all do. But I haven't done anything live or uploaded videos, mainly because of two things. Number one, there's not a lot of new stuff. Sure, we have little things like Predator came out, Bleeding Edge. I don't think there's much newsworthy for me to make a video about. But mostly, I've been trying to do research about PlayStation 5's architecture, right? And it ended up being a lot harder than I anticipated. Reason being is I was surprised how many channels that claim they don't console war thrive off of console war. I was really surprised about that. So the one thing I learned, everybody hates the console war, but everybody does it. You know, anybody who's telling you, oh, console war is stupid is full of shit. All right? I guarantee most of those people have friends that console war, follow channels that console war, and many big channels, even some of the tech channels, a lot of them console war. All right? Now, maybe not to the degree where we do dumb stuff, Puddlegate or any weird stuff like that, like we do, or we name call people or do memes. Not to that extreme, right? Not to that extreme at all. But they have verbiage that will always pit Xbox versus PlayStation versus Nintendo versus PC. They will always drive those points. They make it sound professional, but when you listen to it, it's really just console war. Because that's how they get the views, and that's how they get the discussions, and that's how they get reactions from the audience that are listening to them. They always will tie. A lot of them will always try to tie console war with their point. They can't just say the point on a technical, right? The ones that do are hard to find, right? Or at least it was. Thankfully, many of you on Twitter post videos and help me find those videos so I could watch. And those videos are very informative, right? I will say the best tech channels to learn about Xbox or PlayStation 5 or any architecture are the guys who don't have a console specific channel on YouTube, right? They don't really, the ones I found the most informative, they don't really talk about consoles a lot. They talk about technology, and usually it's AMD, Nvidia, IBM, Intel. They primarily talk about the companies consistently, about the hardware and the GPUs. And then when consoles come around, then they talk about the consoles, but it's always related back to the company who makes the hardware. Those guys, so far, I learned a lot more about what's going on than the actual guys who have channels specifically about the consoles, right? And it kind of makes sense because if you want the tech side of it, you have to go to a guy who primarily talks tech. And if you're talking tech and gaming, it's AMD, Nvidia, Intel, and that sort, right? And the prospects of those companies, okay? So it was real tough, believe it or not, very tough to find good information on that, right? Because, like I said before, it comes down to console warring. There's always going to come down to that for a lot of us, especially the circles that we all run in. And again, it's really no point in people saying, "Oh, console war is stupid." It's a revenue-driven industry now. Console war makes money. I'm sorry. It's just looking at some of the channels, looking at the views some of these channels got, And again, it's not the hardcore fanboy ones or stuff like that because that's too much, right? These guys, they're very smart, but they know how to grab you into the Xbox versus PlayStation fight. They know the right ways, and they will always tie it to it. They will always tie versus, right? Because that's the hook and sinker, right? There are people who want to hear from somebody, Xbox is more powerful. And then there's people who want to hear somebody says, PlayStation is more powerful. Or this is better, that better. And they will always tie their knowledge to ultimately those two statements, right? And what's funny is that some of these guys, they play both sides of the fence so that way they could get both sides of the audience. And I'm not saying that that they should stick to one side, it's actually financially and monetarily smart move for the growth of your channel. It is a smart move because you're just drawing in subscribers and viewers on how you word things. So financially, monetarily, for the growth of the channel, it is a smart move, right? The problem is, it's hard from a user like myself who's trying to get just the facts and information, because you're always running into this and you're like, oh, great, this is why they're doing it, you know? But luckily, if you look at my description channel, there's a user, and it's in the description channel. I highly recommend it. His name is, I'll pull it up right now. And I put the video that I'm talking about that I'm going to talk about right now. Ooh, okay. His name is Cortex. He has 101K subscribers. So, you know, he has a very good channel. And the video is called AMD's Checkmate. So the video, I'm not going to discuss the video in total. I recommend you watch it because I think it would be a disservice if I were to talk about it. He does a very good job, very understandable job. The video is actually about AMD versus NVIDIA and how AMD could be in a position to be the #1 GPU supplier with their future technology. That is what the point of the video is. Granted, he talks a lot about the PlayStation 5, but he's using the PlayStation 5's architecture to drive in the point of AMD and how AMD could be a bigger competitor and actually potentially, in his, not, I wouldn't say his opinion, but he's just giving a prospect of AMD taking over, beating out NVIDIA in the stocks. That is what he's talking about, okay? It's not a console war video. It's not even a PlayStation 5 Xbox X video. It's actually an AMD versus NVIDIA in terms of finance and markets and stocks and all that. But the thing I like about the video is he uses the PlayStation 5 to discuss a certain aspect that AMD is pushing for the future of their products. And he thinks this advantage is what might help him to, right? So let me see if I could lead into another image. Give me a second. All right. So that right there is a big portion of his video, okay? The custom I/O unit of the PlayStation 5. Now, with the conversation we're having, right, for console war, and console war slowing us down is, which is the more powerful system? Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5. On one side, you know, the raw power, the specs of the CPU, GPU clearly shows Xbox Series X more powerful than PlayStation 5. And then the other side saying, well, it's the efficiency and the connection, the bandwidth, all that stuff. And then that's where I would say 90% of the conversation is had. And because of that conversation, we're losing sight of what the PlayStation, what Sony is actually trying to do. Because when you look now, with what I learned now with some of these videos, looking back, Cerny at no point was trying to say that he built a console that's better than the Xbox Series X or more powerful than the Xbox Series X. In fact, that's not what Sony at all designed, all right? But I think a lot of stuff that we got over console warring kind of, how would you say, for example, the 9.2 T-flops, the GitHub leak. Sony got caught off guard. The console was supposed to release in 2019, yada, yada, yada. So when you put all these things together, it all ties to who was trying to create the more powerful console, and Microsoft won that battle, and Sony got caught off guard. When in reality, Sony wasn't trying to create the most powerful console at all. You know, not one bit. That wasn't their vision. That wasn't what they're trying to do. And this live stream will explain a little bit of it, but that video will explain it a whole lot. Okay. So this PlayStation 5 is the PlayStation 5 Sony always intended. It wasn't, you know, a half step, a mistake, or getting caught off guard by Microsoft. Not at all. It's intentional. This is what they wanted to do. And there's a reason for it, as we talk. This is it, right? But the console war makes it seem like not. And even the console war, even after this live stream, because of console war, you're gonna have the counters of Portorock's damage controlling, yada yada yada. The console war is gonna slow us down into learning what Sony's trying to do, right? And in that video, if you look at that video in the link in the description box, you're gonna clearly see. In fact, that's probably one of the most informative videos. You're gonna clearly see what Sony is trying to do and accomplish, and where the industry is actually heading forward, especially with AMD, Nvidia. It's bigger than just PlayStation 5, right? But I think console warring is going to hold us back from this. But what you see right here, I'm not going to go down and describe each component, but this right here is very important, and this right here is what got a lot of developers excited about, all right? This is where you're seeing a lot of videos, a lot of Twitter conversations. Jason Schreier saying that he's talking to a lot of developers and they're excited. It's not the conversation of, is this architecture, what you're seeing here, is what makes the PlayStation 5 more powerful than the Xbox Series X. That's not what this architecture is. CPU, GPU, Xbox Series X is more powerful. They have more raw computational powerful. Of course, the counter is the bottlenecks, whatever. I'm pretty sure that Microsoft created a great console that's going to deliver what it's intended to deliver, which is the best version of the multiplats, ultra settings, the best frame rates that you can get on console at a great price, or whether it's going to be $500, $600. That is what they built. That's what you're going to get. They're leveraging SSD technology to speed up load time. And they're using velocity architecture for resume features to 3 or 4 games. So there is a lot of great tech that the Xbox Series X has. If you're trying to argue this architecture that you see with Sony and using it to say it's more powerful than Xbox, then you're losing the mark, because that's not what this architecture is supposed to do. In fact, Sony did not create a console to counter the Xbox Series X in raw performance and power and computational power, right? And that's what I learned, computational power, right? If you see the video, you're going to see that has nothing to do with that, right? Sony's vision with this architecture is to take gaming to the next level, not in graphical settings, but in gameplay design, to go beyond the restrictions of what all our platforms IO, units are limited to. Okay. Let me go to the next image right here. So let's start with this right here, right? Okay. This is not console warring. This is just, how would you say, for all of us to get a ground zero. Okay. Get a fundamental understanding. Okay. This image that you see right here is not an image to say PlayStation's better, more powerful than Xbox, gonna have better games. That's not what it is, okay? This is just a start, ground zero, to get fundamental understanding. Now, you see Series X, PlayStation 5. This is the bandwidth, for the SSDs and the IO, right? SX push 2.4 gigabytes of raw data, and when you compress it with their technology, you could get up to 4.8. While the PS5 raw data at 5.5 gigs is already higher than Series X compressed data. And with the compressed techniques PlayStation 5 uses, you could get up to 8 to 9 gigs. And that's a game changer. Because if you look at the video and you look at many other videos, even PC, the common PC, right? The consumer market PC. Now, it's one video specifically said consumer market PC, because there are PCs that can do this, what Sony's doing. And there's some that even does more than 8.9 gigs compressed. But it's not the gaming consumer market level products. You're talking high-end PCs that deal with, medical industry, defense contracts. So there's multi-billion industries that has PCs that does this, but it's not designed for gaming. It's designed for stuff that's beyond gaming. Analysis of viruses, like the people right now using COVID, trying to find a cure for COVID or a vaccine for COVID. They're using the PCs that have that level of stuff, But as far as the gaming market, it's too expensive and way beyond. But the gaming market is approaching, as you see with the PlayStation 5. So with that capability, all right, question is, why did Sony choose this path? Because this is what makes the PlayStation 5 expensive. You know, everybody focuses on the CPU and the GPU, and they think, oh man, that's really expensive, really expensive. It's actually the memory and the I/O. Let me go to the next image. I'm sorry, I got the wrong one. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Pardon me. So many images I got here. Bear with me one moment. Right here. Okay, so what am I showing you? All right. So in that video, now hold on, let me go back in case I miss anything. In that video, right, Cortex made a comment. He said the biggest bottleneck, and this is not, again, I'm going to say this again, do not tie this statement to console war. Do not tie this statement to Xbox Series X versus PS5. This statement is agnostic to the modern processor across any device. I don't care if it's a phone, smartphone, a tablet, a TV, desktop computers, laptops. All right, this statement is not a console war statement, and you're probably going to hear me say that because, again, the console war mentality is what's holding us back from learning. So again, but he said, and I wrote it down, is the biggest bottleneck in performance in the modern processor is not related in the computation itself. It's in the communication of the system, right? And what he means is, you know, the CPUs and the GPUs aren't the bottlenecks anymore, right? Far advancements in CPU and GPU technology for computation calculations are off the charts. The problem is the communication within the system to get that all done, right? Okay, that's where the bottlenecks is at, right? So CPUs and GPUs are surpassing the I/O architecture of these systems, right? So let me show you another image that I got from the video, and oh yeah, this image, right? This image right here is from an NVIDIA presentation at Rice University in Texas, right? And the overall presentation is actually talking about, computational versus communication, right? Accelerate design. So if you notice, Xbox and the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 all have accelerators, to improve the performance. And the design accelerator is guided by cost because it is a business, right? The second point you see there is arithmetic is free, particularly low precision. What that means is the components that does the computation, right? They're low cost. And what I mean by low cost, they're not talking about money. They're talking about power. That's what they mean, right? When you hear the word cost, it's not associated to money, even though that's what, at first I thought that's what he's talking about. They're actually talking about power consumption. So computation actually doesn't use a lot of power. And later on, I'll show you examples of that, right? So the better the CPU designs, the better the GPU designs, they don't take up that much power, right? Memory, on the other hand, is expensive. And what they mean by expensive is power consuming. And communication is prohibitively expensive. Communication is another huge cost in terms of power, right? Right here, this is from the NVIDIA chief scientist, William Daly. He says, accessing even a small memory array costs way more than doing the operation. So accessing just a small amount of memory to access it, to get the data pool, costs a lot more in energy than doing that actual operation from the CPU, GPU. And a lot of what we think of memory cost today is actually communication cost. It's the communication within the system that costs a lot. And this is from NVIDIA's chief scientist. Let me go to the next image. So right here, here's a screen to give an example. And this is an example he used, right? So to the left, to the screen, the last two items where you see SRAM, DRAM, ignore those for now. Focus on the top part. Those are the calculations, right? 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, and then you'll see 16-bit, 32-bit FP. That's floating point. Those two in particular, the 16-bit FP, 32-bit FP, that's actually in referencing to T-flops. 32-bit, full float calculations, right? To the right is the amount of power needed to execute those in picojoules. As you can see, very low. 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit add 0.03, 0.05, 0.1 picojoules. Barely any increase, right? Then when they went into the T-flop, 16-bit floating point, right? 0.4 and 0.9, right? And then they went into 32-bit multiply. I didn't study that too much. I didn't look into it. I think once I got the 16-bit, 32-bit floating point, I pretty much got the gist of what he's trying to say. So you saw, still less than 1 full picojoule, right? But now when you look at 32 accessing the memory, 32-bit SRAM, and this is for 32-bit, it's floating point, 5 picojoules already. When you use DRAM, 640 picojoule, 640 times more power than the calculation of a 32-bit FP. And this is what they mean that by communication is expensive. That's why he meant that, all right? Communications is very expensive in power. Let me show you the next image. Okay? So what does all that mean, right? Communication, power, and all that stuff. Well, I got a DM from a developer. I can't say his name. Yo, P-Rock, or brother, his fam's fake chocolate. yo, oh shit. All right, let me take a break. Let's take a break from all this tech talk, and let me tell you what Showan is trying to say. So on Twitter, I made a comment about Nintendo, right? Someone, I don't normally say it on air or whatever, because I understand there's a lot of people, get iffy, whatever. But when I talk to Zaire and all them, we're all boys, whatever. One Twitter user, Apex J or something to that effect. I abbreviated to FN, right? We heard the words, we all use it on Bro Bad Bullies, whatever. Well, someone replied saying that I shouldn't say that word because I am not black. And that's not a word non-black folk is supposed to say. So I posted a photo of my mother, her 2 sisters, her 2 brothers, and my grandfather. And Showan's one of the people that saw that picture, and he's like, man, your family's blacker than mine. So if people don't know, Puerto Rican culture is a mixture of black, European descent, or whatever. So on my mom's side, it's very Afrocentric. It's very, culture in black. You see my mom. My mom and her, you probably don't even know the actress. Is probably past your time. But if you see my mom, unless she opens her mouth, you would think she's a black American. Is when she speaks and you hear her accent is when you realize, oh shit, she's Spanish, whatever. And all everybody on my family side is, you look at them, we look like a Southern black family and stuff like that. So yes, there is black culture in the Puerto Rican culture, in our music and our food and stuff like that, right? And it's still there. If you haven't seen it, go through my timeline. The picture's still there, and you'll see the picture, and you'll be like, oh shit, whatever. Okay. With that, when my mom came to this country at 18 from Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is an American country, right? But when she moved to New York City, she went through the whole races. Because remember, my mom was born in 1947, so she went through the civil rights era and stuff like that when she was a teenager. So she experienced racism as, because of the color of her skin and stuff. The fact that she spoke Spanish made no difference and stuff like that. It is what it is. But anyway, that's what Showan's talking about. So yes, I embrace my the black culture. primarily how I experienced it through the Puerto Rican culture and our music and our food, and stuff like that. And then also the struggles that my family went through, being the skin color. Now, granted, New York is not as bad as maybe the South during the 60s or 70s and stuff, but it was still there, right? But anyway, so that's a little side story to break up the monotony. Okay, so now, with this image that you see here, Jack 2, because of console war, everybody lost the meaning of what Mark Cerny tried to say with this map, okay? Jack 2 was a game released in 2003 on the PlayStation 2, and I think was in development for around 3 years, maybe 4. So let's say, to make the math easy, for 3 years, 2000. Let's say it started development in 2000 just for argument's sake, right? How this game was designed, map design level, gameplay level, right? Not specifically in detail like the lines that you see, just the concept and the rules of how to design games based on the limitations of the architecture, primarily the I/O, right? So you have to conceptualize how do you game design within the constraints of hardware, right? And not calculations, because yeah, calculations are included, right? CPU, GPU, of course that's included. The more powerful GPU, the more you could do whatever. But regardless of the level of calculations, accessing the data has always been a limitation. Because of accessing the data through communication or limited communication, game design has not changed since this game. So I want you to put that in perspective. This game came out in 2003. For argument's sake, began development in 2000. So when this game began development in 2000, game design has not changed. In other words, the Xbox brand wasn't even out yet, and we're still using the same game design, right? Not so much because of the GPU and CPU, but because of the connections. The connections hasn't improved over time to that level to where you can dramatically change gameplay and game design. The strides in CPU, GPU has done phenomenal for the fidelity of the games, the graphics, the textures, the AI, the physics. So game design hasn't really changed, but it felt like it. In reality, game design hasn't changed. It just got better, but it hasn't changed. It just got better because AI got better, physics got better, graphics got better, textures got better, draw distance got better, things like that. But it's still fundamentally the same game design because of connections. And that is what Mark Cerny was talking about. When you now look at it, PlayStation 5 is not a console with the thought of providing the most powerful platform in the world or simple like that. It's an attempt to push the industry forward and to give developers tools to push on new game design, right? Going back to the developer that talked to me, Absolute MMA. Hey, Porter Rock, I missed your live stream of the PS5 Deep Dive. Your thoughts on it? There's also a rumor that God of War is coming to PC. Thoughts? I will hit that up if you don't mind at the end. Since it's off topic, I appreciate the super chat. I will talk about that, and I'll do that towards the end once we get past the main conversation, and then I'll hit those two thoughts on that. All right? I appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much. So a developer gave me how would you say an example to use what theoretically, and he used the word theoretically because at the end of the day you don't know what you don't know until you get your hands on it, right? But he said theoretically use this scenario to explain not just the SSD, because I think right now the problem is we're just focusing on the SSD when in reality it's the architecture of the connections, the I/O. That's really, That's really the bread and butter. Let me see if I could find it again. Is it this one? No. This one? No. Is this right here? That. All right. Even though it says SSD, it's that complete picture. It's the complete setup. That's the big deal, right? And I think we dumbed it down to just SSD. And when it's just SSD, people be like, well, I got an SSD in my PC. It's da-da-da. Or I got an SSD or the Xbox. You know, it's not the SSD. It's that architecture. Of course, you need an SSD of a certain level to make it work. But what you're seeing right there, that's the big deal. But we dumb it down to the SSD. Maybe because it's easier to talk to, it's easier to talk to Twitter. But the SSD is just a component of that whole architecture, right? And that's what it is, right? Anyway, the developer said, to use this example, pretend a video game called The Flash. The Flash, everybody knows what The Flash is, right? The superhero from DC Universe. Pretend that game is being made, right? No character in the game will move faster than the loading of the game itself. Meaning, the game is always loading, right? Everywhere you go, a game is loading. When you spin, many games loads instantly. You can't even tell, as you turn, the game instantly loads and goes back and forth. On poorly optimized games, you can tell when you turn. You ever seen like Rage on PlayStation 3? When you turn, it's blurry and nasty as hell, and you have to wait till the textures load in. That's a very bad, poorly optimized game, right? So a character's movement will not go faster than the loading of the game, right? Imagine you're on a console, right? And the loading of the city and all the facts and the people, whatever, the game is able to load, and I'll use football measurements or sports measurements, 200 yards or 200 meters of in-game distance. So you're looking at the game, right? And about 100 yards or 200 yards, or for those in Europe, 100 meters, 200 meters, the game can instantly load anywhere within a second. So the game could load 200 meters of assets and everything in a second. Instantly, right? Cool. What that means for the Flash, the character, he cannot run faster than 200 meters because he would be running faster than the game could load. So they will limit the Flash to, let's say, 150 meters. So, or 150 yards, whichever. So the game loads 200 meters per second. That means anywhere you go, you'll see 200 meters worth of assets, instantly loading, AI, all that stuff. Flash could run around at 150 meters. That's his speed, right? So the game design is going to be based off Flash, right? 150 meters. With that, since Flash is 150 meters, that means, let's say, cars, they're going to drive 75 meters per second, whatever, right? Because they're not going to drive faster than Flash, because then the missions would suck and it would be hard. So with Flash, he's limited to how fast the game could load, right? His speed, right? And then they're going to do effects, blur, motion blur, all that to make them look, to give you that sense of speed, right? But that character will not be able to move at blazing because the game can't pull the, load that fast. But what if PS5 architecture, you're not limited to 200 meters per second? What if the game could load 1,500 meters per second? So now you got a bigger distance, more assets, just the map, right? Just expanded itself. So in 1 second, boom, every second, boom, that whole map is generating, right? Flash now can run 1,200 meters per second in game, right? So in one game, he's running 150 meters. In another game, he's running 1,200 meters. How would he look between the two versions? The version that he's running 1,200 meters, he is flying all around the map. He is the Flash, right? And now, because you got much speed character, the vehicles, the cars, motorcycles, jets, whatever, can move much more faster in-game because now the game design can be based off his speed. The missions can be based off his speed of 1,200 meters per second, as compared to a mission of a character that can only move 150 meters per second. And that is an example. And this is just theoretical, right? Don't take the numbers as hardcore math, like, oh, the numbers are off. No, it's just an example of how game design can change, right? Based on this architecture, right? And that's what really comes down to it, okay? That's really the whole argument in itself. Now, I would ask definitely for you to watch the video. Great video, right? Granted, it's not a PlayStation 5 Xbox centric video. He touches a lot on it, but he does it because he's actually talking about AMD itself and the technology they're trying to push forward. Believe it or not, a lot of this technology that you're seeing from PlayStation originated with AMD, which originated from PlayStation 3 with the cell processor, right? I didn't know Lisa Liu, right, the head of AMD, she was actually part of the IBM team that helped Sony build the cell processor, and the video talks about it. So that I found that interesting. Some of the stuff that AMD's pushing, whatever, is tied to the cell processor. You got to see the video. You got tech guys who counsel war, and then you got tech guys who are tech guys. The Cortex is a tech guy. And he put out information that just blew my mind, right? So ultimately is this. If you were to ask me, Porter, which you think is a more powerful system? I'm going to be honest and say, for GPU, CPU calculations, all that stuff, ultra settings, graphics fidelity, I would wager and put my money down on the Xbox Series X. Microsoft built, you could say, the traditional console that's built on power and specs and performance, and they have many of the tools, whatever, to get the best looking versions of games in a console spec, right? Of course, PC will always dominate that, but again, we're not talking about console. We all know what, Xbox Series X is going to push amazing graphics and graphics fidelity for like $500-$600, which is amazing, right? And that's just the honest answer, and I don't see nothing wrong with that. Sony, on the other hand, they push a great console. It's going to be native 4K. You're going to get native 4K 60 frames. May not be ultra settings, could be high settings, but it's going to look fantastic, right? But what they want to push is that barrier of communication, right? To limit that bottleneck, to allow developers to create and have a vision, the opportunity to create newer games, newer gameplays, newer game design, to break the barrier, right? And once that barrier is broken to PlayStation 5, everybody else is going to follow suit. I would imagine the next Xbox during the 10th generation gaming will be more in line to what Sony's doing now. And of course, PC is going to be there too. PC will probably be there sooner than Xbox because you get new hardware, new motherboards every year. PC will also have this design philosophy. So the PlayStation 5 is the design philosophy for the future. AMD is going to push it. NVIDIA's pushing it. When you look at the video, you'll see that they're talking about it. This is the way forward. PlayStation 5 is the way forward to push the gaming industry or developers to get new gameplay design, right? It's going to happen, And when you look at that video, the link I posted, this is something AMD is attempting, and also NVIDIA is attempting it as well. It's all about the communication, the I/O, the next level. It's not so much the CPU, GPU. I think from the way it sounds, CPU, GPU, they pretty much conquered it. Of course, it always gets better, but like, what are you going to do, 8K, 16K? At a certain point, you got to do something else, and I think that's the way forward, right? So that's my stunt, right? Keep it simple. I think Xbox Series X is going to be the console with the best performance. Now, are you going to be able to tell the difference? It really comes down to the PlayStation 5. If PlayStation 5 is able to do at least high settings, native 4K, 60 frames, then at that point, what you're going to do? Hype ultra graphics? It's not going to be that much to hype, it already comes down to what PlayStation. I think PlayStation 5 is going to be able to perform at native 4K, high frames. I know, at high settings, 60 frames, right? But where PlayStation is going to shine, but oddly enough, it's going to be limited to the exclusives, is the architecture that they use that will allow developers to hopefully be creative and create new gameplay designs and redesign worlds. Break away from what the same philosophy the industry's been using for 20 years now. You know, if we're going to go back to 2000 with Jack 2, 20 years, same design philosophy. PlayStation 5 can hopefully be the catalyst to break free from that, right? But it's going to be through the exclusives, which is one thing that put a smile on my face, because of this architecture, PlayStation has no choice but to make exclusives. They cannot make multiplats. Sony's first party cannot make multiplats because it takes away from the very core essence of this architecture. If they are trying to push new game design, then they have to set the example. They don't have a choice but to make it exclusive to PlayStation 5 because no other platform is built like this. Not even PC yet. The common PC don't have this architecture yet. So they can't even do day one PC, PS5. You know, PC has to catch up just from this design perspective for now. And when it does, then that conversation can happen at another time. But for now, you're going to see PS5 exclusives because there's no other choice. If Sony doesn't do that, then they themselves took away the very strength of their own architecture, which doesn't make sense on why you would do that. So that's it. I didn't go into too detail in this video, into that in his video, Cortex video, because I think it would be a disservice. Just watch the video. It's very good. It's not dry. Very easily understandable. It's a great video, right? But it's primarily talking about AMD versus NVIDIA, but there is good information that pertains to PlayStation 5 if you're interested, right? That's where I finally learned that it's not just SSD, it's the IO architecture. That's the big thing, right? SSD is just a small part, and I think that's just the marketing part, right? And that's it. So let me go back to Absolute MMA's super chat. He said, again, I'll repeat it. Hi, Puerto Rock, I missed your live stream of the PS5 Deep Dive. Your thoughts on it? There's also rumor that God of War is coming to PC. Thoughts. So for the PS5 Deep Dive, I'm not saying. So I will say this: the Deep Dive is what it is. It was meant for developers, right? I'm not arguing that. It's very dry, but again, it's for developers. It's for people who speak that language, right? It wasn't for people like me or the average, right? So the Deep Dive in of itself is what it is, and it is what it's supposed to be, right? My issue with the Deep Dive is, in my opinion, Sony put the cart before the horse. The Deep Dive should have been held off until after Sony does the reveal of the PlayStation 5. And the reason why I said that is, yes, the Deep Dive was originally meant for the Game Developers Conference, but the Game Developers Conference was canceled. So then that's it. So the reason behind the Deep Dive is canceled, right? Sony should have re-strategized and said, okay, this is what we're going to do now. Since the Game Developers Conference is canceled, we're going to hold off, because it was a recorded event. The Deep Dive was recorded. It wasn't live. It was recorded. So it was on, whatever, on a hard drive or a thumb drive or whatever. We're going to hold off on releasing this Deep Dive, and we're going to work towards the PS5 review. I think showing the PS5 review first, showing the games first, showing the products that takes advantage of the PlayStation 5, right? You're going to have people wonder, how did the PlayStation 5 accomplish all this? Some people might even say, what we saw was a lot of BS, a lot of smoke and mirrors. All that stuff's running on a high-end PC. There's no way 10.3, whatever, 10.2, 10.3 teraflop console can do that. And all that talk about I/O, all that speed, whatever, that's all smoke and mirrors, right? There's some people that will do that. That's where the Deep Dive will then get announced and released like a week later. And now Mark Cerny would be explaining what we saw at the reveal in terms of the games, the performance, the speed of the game, things like that, now he puts that with context, right? We would see live on stage the backwards compatibility, and we will actually see the games that are backwards compatible. His deep dive would explain how they made that happen. You understand what I'm saying? But the deep dive launched, and we got an explanation on just a whole bunch of stuff that we never seen. So you see where the disconnection is at? The deep dive itself wasn't bad. It's just bad timing, because the majority of the people that saw the deep dive are not game developers. It was live on PlayStation's YouTube channel, and I think live it had 700,000 people. You didn't have 700,000 developers watching that. And I think now it's 12 million views. You ain't got 12 million developers watching that. It's mostly PlayStation fans, and PlayStation fans got access to in-depth information on something they haven't seen yet. They didn't see no games. They don't see nothing. So they can't really tie his information into an actual product. And majority are not going to do the research for that. You know, some people are just disappointed at that. For your second part, my thoughts on God of War PC. Some of you may have saw my video about the 3 courses of action Sony might take. I firmly believe that as we get more into PlayStation 5 generation of gaming, that the PlayStation 4 games are fair game, because that generation of game is over. Because at that point, once PlayStation 5 officially launches, the current gen will now be the PlayStation 5. Right now, PlayStation 5 is next gen, but once it launches, it's current gen. And PlayStation 4 will be last gen. And I think Sony sees that as fair game, because the PlayStation 4 isn't what's selling the PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 games is selling the PlayStation 5. PlayStation 4 games would have done what they did, which is sell the PlayStation 4. And I firmly believe that's what Sony is attempting to do. Just double dip on games that don't impact the PlayStation 5. The problem is the optics. J-Heart, you see Predator Hunting Grounds? I played it. Should be free to play. I'm gonna be honest, and I'll give you my opinion on Predator Hunting Ground. But going back to what I was saying, God, man, you put Predator in my head, and now like the phrase "want some candy" is like running in my head, because one of the movies he said that. Oh my God, why did you put Predator? Oh my God, now that phrase is in my head. Jesus Christ, what was I saying? Help me out here. Oh, okay, thank you. So Sony, PS4 did its job. I mean, PS4 games, Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, they sold the PlayStation 4. The problem is there's a perception, because these games are going to PC, that Sony is adopting Microsoft's strategy of putting everything they want across all platforms. And that's Sony's fault. My opinion, Sony should just say right out, saying that, hey, and maybe they will, maybe they won't, and I think maybe they tried to say it, but I would say, hey, you know, me personally, I would just be a straight shooter. I would tell them straight up. I'd be like, listen, I understand the concern. New generations coming up. Let's say if I worked for Sony, right? I would just come out straight up and say, we understand your concern. You're seeing Horizon Zero Dawn go to PC. You've seen Death Stranding go to PC. Potentially now rumors of God of War going to PC. We understand your concern. And your concern is, do I need to buy a PlayStation 5 if the games are going to PC? And the answer is yes, unless you want to wait 4 or 5 years till the next generation to happen. Our strategy is PlayStation 5 is the focus of effort. Games are going to be built from the ground up on PlayStation 5 to take advantage of this amazing architecture. PlayStation 4 are last gen games. They've done what they had to do. We're moving on to the PlayStation 5. PlayStation 4 library of titles is in the past. We're just bringing past titles to a new audience on a different platform, right? But as far as PlayStation 5 goes, this is our vision. This is what we're doing. And so on. And then at that point, If PC gamers want to wait 4 or 5 years to play a PlayStation 5 game, then okay, so wait the 4 or 5 years or whatever. And I think Sony should do that because I think it's transparent. It's not a wrong message. It's an honest message. People can relate. Now, of course, there's going to be people who says, oh, you're lying, Sony. You're lying. These games are going to come to PC day one. So you're going to have people doing that. But I think if Sony consistently pushes out that message over and over, people will get the hint, right? You don't have to convince 100% of the people. You just need to convince the majority, right? Because there's no way you're going to convince every single gamer, right? There's always going to be a naysayer. But I say right now, with the way things are going, there is a lot of gamers that are wondering what Sony's doing in terms of next gen. Are they following the Microsoft model? Or, ecosystem battle? Are the games gonna be available on PC day one? Because then that could open up an option for people to try out PC gaming. Consumers just want to know what's going on so they could put their money towards the product they want to play the games that they want, right? So I think Sony just needs to be transparent, and hit it home over and over to ad nauseum, so that way the majority knows, yes, this is what PlayStation is doing, And if Sony, because they don't consider PS4 generation is over, is last gen, and they say PS4 games are fair game now, then so be it. I mean, we moved on to the PlayStation 5. Now we have to push forward and look forward on PlayStation 5 exclusives and how these games will take advantage of the PlayStation 5. That will eventually be the focus of effort, right? But the lines are blurred, and I would say that's Sony's fault because they're not being clear, they're not being transparent. So that's on them. A lot of people are saying, hey, there's no reason to buy a PlayStation 5 because I could get all the games on PC. And that's Sony's job to clear that up. I can only assume, but at the end of the day, it's their responsibility to make that decision. It's not mine, So that's just how would you say my opinion on that, right? But with that, been on here for about an hour. I truly appreciate you guys rocking out with me. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. I'll come back in a couple of days. See if we could do another live stream, talk about something, maybe get some of the fellas that are locked down in their house, and we'll just talk about stuff, right? But as far as Predator, it should be a free-to-play. Especially with Call of Duty Warzone being free-to-play, that game has no business charging money, right? It's going to get evolved, in my opinion. It's going to be another case of evolve. But anyway, you guys take care. Stay blessed. God bless. Stay safe out there. I wish you all the best for your family. And if you don't mind, on your way out, hit the like button. I truly appreciate you guys rocking out with me and everything, all right? Hey, you guys be easy. Take care. This is your boy, Porter Rock 77, and I'm out of here. Peace.